We have ourselves a thin slate of pitcher for today in daily fantasy baseball with a couple of guys I like in Zach Wheeler and Walker Buehler, but the fall off after that is precipitous. And you can see that by looking at the player pool over on FanDuel.com. You see that those are the two guys above $9,500, and there's only one other guy above $8,500. So our goal today is to decide, is there actually that big of a fall off between the top guys and the rest? How do we react as a result of that? And do we just focus on the studs, or can we deviate elsewhere? Welcome on into the solo shot. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sanas. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Here to break down today's 10-game main slate with locks set for 7:05 for tonight. And thankfully, unlike last night, there is no weather to discuss for today. Hopefully you were reading Kevin Roth and Roto Grinders and reading what he was saying about that Blue Jays Red Sox game. I didn't think it'd be that bad, but he did, and he was right. So hopefully you were in tune to that, because it could have saved some sticky situations. Luckily, FanDuel did let people player swap out of Blue Jays and Red Sox. They pushed lock back on that. So hopefully you saw that and were able to swap out if you did use some Blue Jays there. But either way, unfortunate situation, to be sure, with that game. Thankfully, no rain in the forecast for today. We are good to play our favorite plays. We'll talk about those in just 1 second. But first, make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Wherever you get your podcasts, we have our our golf DFS preview up for the Men's Olympic Games. That is up on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, radio.com, you name it, we're there. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating and review as well. Hey, soccer fans, this season, FanDuel and Captain Morgan are teaming up to give you a one-of-a-kind soccer contest. Introducing the Captain Morgan Soccer Pick'em, a weekly fantasy contest that is entirely free to play. The contest is simple. All you have to do is make quick predictions for Saturday games this soccer season. You will earn free points for each correct pick and compete for a chance to win $3,000 in prizes every single week. Head over to FanDuel and enter the Captain Morgan Soccer Pick'em today. Must be 21 plus to participate. For more details, visit FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel Fantasy app. Eligibility restrictions apply, and don't forget to make your game day more delicious and sub in the captain. Pitching preview for this Wednesday main slate. Walker Buehler is the highest salaried pitcher on FanDuel, checking in at $11,500. Zach Wheeler is 10-6. Lucas Giolito, the one kind of floater in here, he's $9,200. And then with Anthony DeSclafani and Tyler McGill as the others at $8,000 or higher. So it's a thin slate. And when this occurs, you can potentially deviate in certain situations. But to me, when it's thin, I want to load up on the guys I feel good about. And to me, there is one guy I feel great about for today, and I think that he is several tiers above the pack. That is Zach Wheeler. I was on Zach Wheeler last week, and I have no reason not to be high on him once again here. I think he is the top guy on the slate by a decent margin. He's facing the Nationals, and they're not an auto-target team with a righty, but they're also not a match we need to avoid. They've got a 96 WRC plus with a 23% strikeout rate and a low walk rate. And now you take Trey Turner out of that lineup, and it does definitely make things a bit more intriguing for opposing pitchers. That should give Wheeler a good floor, something he already possesses by himself, but his skills provide the ceiling. We've seen Wheeler cut back on his four-seam fastball usage over his past 10 starts, and 10 starts, to me, is a huge sample. I will use a 3-start sample at times, for sure. 10 starts is a luxury, and Wheeler's been very good in those 10 starts. A 31% strikeout rate, 2.94 skill interactive ERA, and he also has very good batted ball data. And I say very, like, not flippantly. Like, disgusting might be the better word for it. His fly ball rate and hard hit rate allowed are both under 24% in this time. That means that the paths to failure for Wheeler are narrower for him than for most people. And he also goes super deep in games. He's had 110 plus pitches twice in the past 4 starts. His ERA over these 10 starts is 2.37. He has 8 plus strikeouts in 6 out of 10 starts. So I really just don't see any reasons not to love him. He is the top of my list for sure for tonight. And to me, I would say cash games, go Wheeler. Single entry, go Wheeler. Multi-entry, have a lot of exposure to Wheeler. That is why I want to play things for tonight, given how thin the pitching slate is, and given the fact that Walker Buehler is second on my list, but my level of confidence in him is a lot lower than Wheeler, which does mean I'm going to just jack up exposure to Wheeler and hope it pans out. Buehler is second, I should say. I think there are concerns here. So he's a healthy chunk behind Wheeler, and I would proceed with caution and get a lot more exposure to Wheeler. But Buehler does work as our number 2 option. The reason I am so cautious about him is that he's facing the Giants again. He just faced them last week, and he was great. He was very good. But this will now be the third start for Buehler against the Giants in a month. He has been awesome in each of the first 2. But at some point, that familiarity they're going to have with him is going to hurt. And that could well happen tonight. That's why, to me, Buehler is a full tier below Wheeler. The reason I would still put Buehler second is that he's a really good pitcher. He's gone back to using his cutter once again over his past 8 starts, and he has a 29% strikeout rate in that time, a 3.47 skill interactive ERA. He has good batted ball data, and it's much better than the last time he's leaned on his cutter. Remember earlier on this year where he jacked up his cutter usage, let up a lot of hard contact. He cut back on it. He's back on it now, and the hard contact has not been there. So he's a much better pitcher now than he was earlier this year. The Giants will strike out. They have a 26% strikeout rate versus righties, so it's possible Buehler could beast again. That's why he is number 2 on this list. But I think that there are a lot more, again, if we're going to use this phrase, there are more paths to failure with Buehler than there are with Wheeler. So he is a distant second for me, and I think that I do want to be aggressive in going Wheeler over Buehler for tonight. Now, if you're deviating from those 2, we'll talk about Lucas Giolito and things to watch. If you're looking for safety, you're not going to find it. It is a very thin slate at the top, and to me, it's even thinner because I think that I'm probably going to view a wider gap between Wheeler and Buehler than most may. And that's generally the case. If you're looking for a value play, you're not going to get safety, but it's especially true tonight. If you can't get safety, you might as well shoot for upside. I do think that Tyler McGill at least has upside, so I will be okay talking about him here at $8,200. He's facing the Braves, and they are not as tough of a matchup without Ronald Acuna Jr. Got a 98 WRC plus versus righties with a 25% strikeout rate. They still have a lot of power. They still put the ball in the air a bunch, and that's why there is risk with McGill, but it comes with upside. McGill has pitched well in the big leagues so far. He's up to 6 starts now. He has a 3.80 skill interactive ERA with a 27% strikeout rate. He's not great elsewhere, like a couple too many walks, not the best batted ball data, but he's also not actively bad in those departments. And they're letting him at least go deep enough in games to be viable. McGill has gone 92 plus pitches in half of his 6 starts. He went just 78 last time out, but he still went 6 shutout innings against the Blue Jays, who are very, very good. McGill has shown he can hold his own against Atlanta. He made his first 2 starts against them, and he did let up some runs in both of them, but he also had 8 strikeouts in the second one. Now he's not facing Acuna, so I think there is enough here to be interested in McGill. He's $8,200. You can go nutso at hitter if you want. So if I'm multi-entering, so again, we talked about cash games and single entry with Wheeler. If I'm multi-entering, I would say get as much Wheeler as you can stomach, given it is one guy. I think 75% probably appropriate for me personally. And then mixing in Buehler and McGill as the other options. Andrew Heaney a consideration as well, but I prefer McGill among the value plays and don't want to get too spread out among the non-Wheeler lineups for tonight. So that is the way I'm viewing pitching for today. It's all about Zach Wheeler, everyone else fighting for second place and fighting to be viable for the player pool. Let's move now to stacks, and we'll be keeping Wheeler in mind here. We'll have a value stack for the third stack, and we'll talk about some value plays in the second stack as well. But the top stack is one I like a lot, and that's the Angels facing Chichi Gonzalez. We have been stacking against Gonzalez plenty of late, and that's true on the road too, not just at Coors Field. I want to do it again tonight with the Angels. Gonzalez has been increasing the usage on his four-seam fastball recently. He's using fewer sliders as a result of that increased fastball usage. And I'm not sure what the goal is of this, probably trying to get more strikeouts, but it's not working out right now. He has a 5.16 skill interactive ERA with a 14% strikeout rate. The only reason his skill interactive ERA is not higher than 5.16 is that his walk rate is very low. but that means he's letting up more balls in play, which we love for DFS. And that's especially true when 45% of the balls in play are hard hit. The fly ball rate is not astronomical at 37%, but it is still higher than the league average. So basically Gonzalez needs to excel in that department to cancel out the lack of strikeouts, and he's not, which is why these rough results continue. He faced the Dodgers on the road last week, let up 4 runs in 5 innings. He also let up 3 runs to the Diamondbacks on the road across 5 innings. That's a really rough offense, whereas the Angels are not. So I like them a lot tonight. The one thing that would lower me on the Angels is if Jared Walsh has to sit again. He missed last night's game due to what they're calling a side injury. That's a red flag because it could be an oblique, and those are the worst. He has not gone on the IL yet, which says to me it might not be an oblique. Walsh has struggled from a results perspective in July, but still has 6 barrels and a 44% hard hit rate in July. So if he plays, I will use him. If he sits, I will still like the Angels a lot, and I'll still love Shohei Ohtani as a one-off, but I would be a bit lower on the Angels as a whole. So keep an eye on Walsh, see if he's in there for today. That will likely lead to their lineup being out later than usual because they'll probably want to let him run around, let him take BP before they put out the lineup, but I think it's worth the wait, given how good they could potentially grade out for tonight. Now, for the second stack, I do think there is some value here. We were on the White Sox 2 nights ago against the lefty. It did not pan out. They scored just 3 runs and had just 3 extra base hits for the entire night. We need more than that for DFS. But I do like their matchup tonight more than the one they had back on Monday, so I think we should stack the White Sox against Chris Bubich. Bubich is a full rung below Mike Minor, which is a guy they faced on Monday. Bubich has been in and out of the rotation this year, and that tells you something to begin with. But over his past 6 overall outings, he's been throwing more curveballs. His strikeout rate is 18% in that time with a 13% walk rate. He's let up a lot of base runners. His skill interactive ERA is 5.31, which is the second worst on the slate. And it's the worst among players facing a relevant/viable offense. We have seen Bubich let up some rough results in the stretch, even when facing not elite competition. He let up 5 earned runs to the Reds, who struggle versus lefties. He allowed 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning against the Rangers, who are bad versus lefties. The White Sox, still among the league's best teams against lefties, with a 116 WRC plus, and they just got Eloy Jimenez back. So I think the White Sox should be able to get to him here, and I do like them quite a bit. Now, Jimenez, not a value play for today, but we can go back once again to Andrew Vaughn and Adam Engel. Obviously, Jimenez had that massive tank last night, so no lingering concerns there. But as far as Vaughn and Engel go, when Jimenez played on Monday against the lefty, both those guys were still in the lineup, and both these guys have some power, especially versus lefties. Vaughn, really good ISO versus lefties. Engel, it's actually showed a little bit of pop. He can steal some bases too. So I would assume based on Monday's lineup that those 2 guys do play once again. If they do, Vaughn is $2,900. Engel is $27. They can help you get to Jimenez at 33 or get to, Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson, et cetera, in this stack. So I think we can make the White Sox work very easily with Wheeler. And if you can find some value plays, you can get to Abreu and Anderson as well in those Wheeler lineups. So I do think that the White Sox grade out well once again. The one issue with Shohei Ohtani and the Angels with Wheeler is that it might be tough to get to Ohtani. If you're stacking the Angels, you want to get to Ohtani. He's just kind of like the guy in that lineup. But I think we can make it work because our third stack is the Brewers. And they got a lot of value out of this team. The guys I want to use here are all below $3,000. So if you want to stack Ohtani with Wheeler, you want to get to Abreu and Anderson with Wheeler, I think the Brewers are a good place to turn to. They're facing what looks like will be a bullpen game for the Pirates, and I think we can justify them here. The Pirates traded away Tyler Anderson last night and had to start Luis Oviedo. He lasted just an inning. So basically, this is their second consecutive bullpen game. And that means they're going to be drained and using some suboptimal options. I would bet that Dwayne Underwood gets some innings in. He's really struggled so far this year. And their overall bullpen ERA is 4.10, which is not elite, especially when we don't expect much of it to come from Richard Rodriguez, who might not be on the team by the time we get to first pitch. I would probably try to stick to guys who can hit both lefties and righties in this team. I'd expect Austin Davis to pitch in this game too, and he's a lefty, so I would keep that in mind, but it also shouldn't restrict us too much because the main guys we want to stack here on the Brewers are guys who are righties who can hit righties. Willy Adames, Luis Urias, Avisaíl Garcia, Lorenzo Cain. If Tyrone Taylor plays, I could get there as well. He didn't play last night versus a righty despite Yelich being out, so because Cain was back. But all those guys have shown power versus righties, or at least some power, and they're righties. So I would say those righties are the guys you want to focus on here when stacking the Brewers. And I think that they all grade out well in a situation where we don't really know who they will necessarily face. If you stack the Brewers and go with Wheeler, you can get to Ohtani for sure. You can get to whoever you want on the White Sox. And I think that this is a good way to play things for tonight, using the Brewers as value plays to get to the second stack that you want along with Wheeler. Let's move now to things to watch and talk about Lucas Giolito. I think you can make the case for Giolito for tonight because he's had some good games recently, but the overall form is rough. The changeup is the pitch that had led to the breakout for Giolito a few years ago. And he's been throwing that pitch less and less over his past 6 starts, and I don't know why. His strikeout rate in that time is down to 22%. He's facing the Royals, who are not a huge strikeout team. So that's kind of annoying. I'm still willing to consider him. He did just have a good start against Houston out of the All-Star break, and they're very good. So Giolito has good games within his range of outcomes, and that does matter. He's just not in as good of overall form as Wheeler and Buehler. So he's a consideration kind of in that McGill-Buehler tier, but I think that he would probably rank below Buehler for sure for me, definitely below Wheeler by a wide margin. And he's kind of on par with McGill as a consideration, but not necessarily a priority for me for tonight. If you're looking for some more bats, specifically some value bats, I like both sides of the Marlins and the Orioles potentially being stackable. The Marlins facing Jorge Lopez. He has minimal strikeouts. He lets up a lot of hard contact. So the Marlins work. And, obviously Jesus Aguilar, Adam Duvall, Starling Marte, all those guys could get traded before first pitch. Probably not Duvall given the contract, but those guys could be traded, but Lewin Diaz is going to play, I'd assume. They just called him up. He's minimum salary. Dinger last night. Good AAA numbers. I'm super into that, whether it be as a one-off to give you more flexibility elsewhere or as part of a potential Marlins stack. I think that it's at least an option in Baltimore for today. As for the Orioles, they're facing Jordan Holloway. He has done a really good job of suppressing hard contact since he came back to the Marlins, but he's walking a lot of guys. Now he's going to a hitter's park and facing a DH. I think the Orioles could jump on that. So not looking at the value plays necessarily here, but like Cedric Mullins is absurdly undersalaried at $3,100. He hasn't had like a big pop game recently, but the pillars for a pop game are still there for Mullins. So I will use him as a one-off. I will use him as part of a stack potentially too. But I think the Orioles and Marlins both in play for tonight from a stacking perspective after you get past those top 3 options. Let's finish up here today with the dinger calls for Wednesday night. The boring one is truly boring, and it's going to be Shohei Ohtani. He's had a couple home runs so far this year, 36 to be precise. I think he goes deep once again tonight against a low strikeout righty. I think Ohtani is the top home run call of the slate. If you want to go a bit more fun, my home run call will be Andrew Vaughn of the White Sox. He has been awesome versus lefty, a 306 or a 305 ISO, I believe. Apparently, Rosa is very into Andrew Vaughn as a home run pick for today. So I do think it's a situation where we just go hard at Vaughn and feel good about it. So the home run calls for today, Shohei Ohtani and Andrew Vaughn. That is all that we have here for today on the Solo Shop. But as always, we are back here once again, 4 p.m. Eastern on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages, taking your questions and getting you set for tonight's slate of MLB DFS. Make sure you are subscribed there, but also make sure you subscribe to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. The men's golf DFS slate locks tonight. So if you are procrastinating like me, make sure you get those lineups in. Check out the Heat Check with myself and Brandon on the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. If you have questions for me before 4 p.m., I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your MLB DFS lineups. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been the solo shot right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.